everyone, and welcome back to Inside Number 23, my podcast which is all about knitting and sewing and generally living the craftiest life possible. My name is Katie. You can find me pretty much everywhere on social media as Miss Lavelli. I'm most active on Instagram though, and you can find a lovely group for our podcast over on Ravelry. If you just head to the groups tab and search Inside Number 23, you will find our group, and it's filled with beautiful, lovely people, and that's where you can get involved in things like knit-alongs and giveaways and all of that good stuff. It is not where you will be finding show notes anymore. You may have noticed in the past several weeks I have not been uploading my show notes to Ravelry. I do not intend to upload my show notes to Ravelry any longer. They will be in the down bar down below as usual until I can find a new home for them. But yes, that's where you can find show notes with information as to everything that I talk about in the podcast. And I'm coming to you as always from Hertfordshire, which is just north of London in the UK, where I live with my gorgeous husband Emrys and our even more gorgeous pug puppy Rolly. And yes, welcome back if you are a long-term viewer, and a big hello if you are brand new and watching for the first time. Thank you so much for coming to spend a little bit of crafty time with me today. I have a lot to get through and I'm pretty excited, I'm not gonna lie. If you do want to get in touch with me regarding anything to do with the podcast, so for example giveaway prizes or sponsorship, please get in touch with me via email. If you try and direct message me on any other platforms, so Instagram or Ravelry, I will not get back to you. I am specifically communicating with this podcast through emails, and the email address is katie@insidenumber23.com. So please feel free to drop me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, I'm going to start off with the elephant in the room. For those of you who may not be regular viewers, I don't always look like this. I have done my hair this week. My brother is getting married next weekend, so that means that in a week's time it'll all be finished. But basically I do want to have a nice fancy hairdo for the wedding. It's been a while since I've set my hair and done a kind of 1940s 50s style, so I decided to have a practice run this week and I'm relatively happy with the outcome, so that's why my hair looks super fancy. This is not something that I do on a day-to-day basis anymore, although it used to be for a very long time. This is how I wore my hair permanently, but my lifestyle choices have changed somewhat and I no longer kind of want to give up the time to do this on a day-to-day basis, but it's fun to do it every now and then. But that's why I have super fancy hair just on a casual Sunday, as it were. So yes, this is not how I usually look. It's just a little bit of fun, a little bit of change, and a little bit of practice for the wedding next weekend. In terms of some other things that have been going on this week, I wanted to start off by saying thank you to everybody who sent well wishes to Rolly. You may have seen through my Instagram that he was a little bit poorly this week. He was limping very badly one morning. I went down to give him his breakfast and let him outside, and he was limping very badly. His right front paw was clearly very painful, so much so that when I tried to check it to see if anything was caught between his little pads, he actually got quite snappy. And Rolly is not a snappy dog. He is the most gentle, loving, kind puppy in the whole world, so we knew something wasn't right. We got the vet to look at him, and the good news is he's absolutely fine. It looks as though he might have contracted some kind of infection in one of his paw pads, but he's on medicine and he is already considerably better than he was just a couple of days ago. So thank you for everyone who expressed concern for him, but rest assured he's absolutely fine. He's getting lots of love and cuddles and affection and generally being incredibly spoilt, so he is absolutely fine. Other things that have been going on this week, it feels like it's been a bit manic. It was my dad's birthday earlier this week, so happy birthday again, Daddy. I love you so much. My dad watches this podcast. He has no interest in knitting or sewing, but he still watches every week, so I love you so much. It's also Father's Day today, so we're going to be going out and celebrating with him again later. It's just been really nice to spend some time with my family this week, in particular my dad, obviously, because it's his birthday and everything, but it's been really lovely. But that has meant that my time again has been a little bit constricted in terms of what I've been able to get done. in terms of all my crafty bits and pieces. The other thing that has been really taking up my time is, again, decorating of the house. I am really getting stuck into a bit of DIY inside number 23 this week and for the past several weeks. I'm loving it. It's very important to me to have a house that reflects my personal style and Emrys's style within reason. No, Emrys is very generous in terms of letting me kind of get on and pick pretty much everything that goes into the house. He does like to give the okay on things that are a little bit more extreme, but he does allow me to pretty much get on with it when it comes to picking the decorations. We are hoping to get quite a lot of work done relatively soon, so that kind of drive and just wanting everything to be done as soon as possible, because I'm impatient, has again taken up a lot of time. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in General Waffle today, so that's pretty exciting. One more thing before we get on with all of the crafty goodness this week. And I know that this is going to be controversial because a lot of you are going to think I'm complaining over nothing because of where I live, but it's been so hot here the last couple of days. I'm going to stop you. Anyone who's in the States who lives in really hot areas where it's hot all the time, I understand having temperatures that we have here, like highs of about 30 to 32 degrees. That's not hot for a lot of people, but believe me, for the UK, it's boiling. In particular, it's even more boiling considering that all of our main cities are pretty much concrete jungles with no air conditioning whatsoever. My car doesn't even have air conditioning. So in the last couple of days, when it's been, you know, topping the low to mid 30s, and my car has been outside in a car park all day, you can imagine that driving home in that is like driving home in an oven. So it's not been great, and that has as well impacted my knitting mojo somewhat, just because I really don't want to be touching wool and fibres and that kind of thing when my hands are all hot and sticky. I have to take some time to cool down before I allow myself to pick up my knitting. The heat is not helping. But all that aside, I have got quite a lot of stuff to share with you this week. So without further ado, let's just crack on with it, shall we? So let's move on to the first segment, which is, as always, what am I wearing? And I'm fully me-made today, as always, for the podcast. I have to keep representing for the podcast, and surprise, surprise, both the objects that I'm currently wearing are Tilly and the Buttons patterns. I'm wearing my Mimi blouse, my little white embroidered cotton blouse, which is from the book Love at First Stitch, and I'm also wearing my Cleo dress, my little pinafore dress. These are both things that I've shared on the podcast before, so I'm not kind of going to get up and show them off in their full glory, as it were. But I just love Tilly. I think she is incredible. I think her patterns are wonderful and I love them. I want multiples of both of these. I always say this, but I definitely want more Mimi blouses. I want more Cleo dresses. I have fabric, I think, for both of these in my stash. I really need to crack on and get some more sewing done. I think after the wedding is done and my dress for the wedding is fully completed, I will definitely be spending a little bit more time getting some more clothes made. So yay! I have been incredibly fortunate this past week to receive some gorgeous things in the post. So it is time, of course, for Owl Post. The little owls have been busy. I mean, goodness, can you imagine if owls were delivering my parcels in this heat? It would be ridiculous. But I have had some lovely parcels and I would love to just take a minute to share those with you. The first bit of gorgeousness this week was sent to me by lovely, lovely Liz of Tray Liz. And Liz surprised me with two gorgeous skeins of yarn. And Liz, I can't thank you enough because these are stunning. I think she must have been listening to what I've been saying on the podcast in terms of I added some singles to my Cozy Memories blanket a couple of weeks ago. And I have never actually knit with singles yarn before, but the feel of it and putting it into the blanket and really enjoying it just made me think, oh, this is nice. I like this. And Liz, sneaky lady that she is, an amazingly talented lady that she is, sent me two skeins of singles yarn. Now these are both slightly different blends. This is her incredible label. Isn't that just gorgeous? And what I love is that her labels are actually different colours depending on the colour of yarn, or maybe it's the blend of the yarn, I'm not entirely sure, but these are both singles. This one is, let me just see, the Eros blend. It's 95% merino and then 5% silver stellina singles, and the colour is, I thought, freaking bacon, which I think is amazing. I'm a little bit obsessed with this. I really, really love the colours in this. I think it's glorious. It's a little bit Halloween-y as well, which I think is just fabulous. The other one is, oh my lord, it's so beautiful. The blend is called Psych, and it's a 50-50 blend of superwash merino and silk in singles. And look at that pink. Is that not just everything? And I love the neon label on this one. I'm obsessed with these. These definitely need to be in some kind of shawl, I think. And I have been toying with the idea of casting on the Vortex shawl, which is by my lovely, lovely friend Charlotte, who I had the pleasure of meeting in Edinburgh this year. She has some gorgeous patterns, but I've been a big fan of the Vortex for a while. So maybe one or both of these may end up in a Vortex shawl one day. But Liz, thank you so much for sending these. They are glorious. I cannot recommend her yarn enough. I can't wait to cast something on with these. The second parcel that arrived was really quite plump and gorgeous, and it was sent to me by lovely Audrey. Audrey wrote me the most beautiful letter explaining about what she has sent me in this parcel, and oh my goodness, guys, you are going to die when you see these. The lovely, lovely thing about this yarn that she has sent me is that it's quite a rustic fibre. It's all pure wool, and I haven't seen anything like this in a really, really long time, and it really excites me, and I'm just really, really happy to be able to share this with you. She sent a prize for the Harry Potter KAL. She sent a selection of minis that are all Harry Potter themed. So the colourways are Godric, Helga, Rowena, Salazar and Albus Dumbledore, a Dumbledore. So obviously these ones are going to be the houses, and then this beautiful kind of purpley, pink, white blend, I believe, is Albus Dumbledore. I think these are gorgeous. This yarn, this wool is, I mean, rustic is the word for it. They are amazing. I can't handle how cool these are. I think that they are beautiful. And I just love the feel of them. I love that slightly crunchy, rustic wool. And these are going to be going into the Harry Potter KAL. I haven't decided for which month that they will be, but they are amazing. I will, of course, include Audrey's details down below so that you can check out her, her shop and her Instagram. But I believe she does take custom orders. So if you want something similar, go and grab some. She was very kind enough to also send some gorgeous yarn for me, and this is a sock pair called Redhead, which is particularly appropriate considering my hair colour, although since I've started growing out my dye, I'm considerably less a redhead than I've ever been. My hair has very much darkened in my old age, but I love these. I think that they are gorgeous. Look at this! Oh, it just makes me so happy. This is a slightly softer kind of yarn than the yarn included for the minis. This is a 75-25 wool nylon mix, and the nylon has done a lot to considerably smooth the feel of this, but these colours are incredible. I can't wait to have a pair of socks in this colour. I am going to cast them on and make them as long as I physically can because I want to use every single scrap of this yarn. Thank you so much, Audrey. You are so talented, and I just thank you for your beautiful letter. Thank you for thinking of me and for sharing your talent with the viewers of the podcast. The last lovely parcel that turned up on my doorstep this week actually just arrived yesterday, so it's just snuck in under the bar in terms of being included in the podcast. And this was sent to me by lovely Caitlin of Goosey Fibers. Now, Goosey Fibers was actually named after her little boy, which I think is really, really sweet. And Goosey, I believe, is his nickname, but Caitlin dyes up some incredible bits, and she sent me a whole selection of gorgeousness and has basically said that I can keep as much as I want and give away as much as I want. And I'm not gonna lie, it's dangerous when people say that because I'm tempted to keep everything. But don't worry, I will definitely be including some of this in a giveaway very, very soon. And she's also included some beautiful bits that are going to go towards the Harry Potter KAL. First of all, I'm going to show you the 2 skeins of yarn that she sent, both of which are beautiful but Harry Potter inspired, which makes them even better as far as I'm concerned. So here they are, this incredible blue. And there is her label, Goosey Fibers, good for the gander, which makes me laugh so much. This stunning blue is the Goosey sock base. It's a 75-25 superwash merino in this gorgeous blue colour, and this is the Newt colourway, obviously Newt Scamander themed. The other one is this incredible, very heavily variegated kind of pastels and greens, and it's beautiful. The more that you look at it, the more interest there is. And this is also on the Goosey sock base, and it is called Always, which I just love. I think this is gorgeous. But as if that weren't enough, she also sent us some sock blanks. She's recently started creating art on sock blanks, and guys, these are brilliant. The first one is a kind of family reunion style. Look at these bears, aren't they brilliant? And what's fun is that she's also given the central bear a Hufflepuff scarf, as she knows that I'm a Hufflepuff, so that is such a lovely touch. I think that these are incredible, and the pattern is on the back as well. It's just gorgeous. Again, it's the 75-25 superwash merino nylon, so perfect for socks. And I just think, how fun is that? That's adorable. I'm not sure if I will be keeping that sock blank, because this one I am definitely keeping for myself. This is so brilliant. You're not even gonna believe how amazing it is. That is a pug who is floating away on some little balloons. Look at how gorgeous. This is called A Great Adventure, but she very kindly named it Rolly's Great Adventure, as if it were Rolly flying through the sky, hanging off a big bunch of balloons. I'm not sure how Rolly would cope with that kind of an adventure, but the colours in this are beautiful. There's all of these pinks and blues and teals, the little puggy colours, bits of green and orange, all my favourite things. This is going to be for me to keep. It's very special and I love it. But in terms of all of the other bits and pieces, I might be generous and, you know, give them to you guys at some point. Thank you so, so much to those lovely 3 ladies for the owl post this week. You genuinely made my life a much, much happier place, and I can't wait to get some things cast on with these gorgeousness and to be able to share them with you guys, hopefully very, very soon. So enough about what came in the post. I think it's about time we talked about what's on my needles this week. And I'm happy to say that I actually have some quite fun stuff to share with you because, guys, I have a finished object. I know, it's kind of amazing and unexpected, and I'm really excited about it, but I have a finished object, and it's a pair of socks. It's a pair of socks for Emrys, just in time for the incredible heat of summer. I know, I'm great at my timing and everything when it comes to gift knitting for other people, but yes, I finally finished his Socktor Who socks. He is really, really excited about these. When he saw that I was finishing them, he was so happy, and that made me just want to knit him even more stuff in the future. So you never know, maybe I'll cast on another pair of socks. But in case you don't remember, because it's been a while since these made an appearance, this yarn was by Valkyrie Fibers. It was a part of the Valentine's Day Doctor Who kit, which I purchased. It was a collaboration of various dyers, but this incredible self-striping yarn is called Allonsy. And it is obviously a 10th Doctor inspired yarn. David Tennant's Doctor, for those of you who don't know them by the numbers. And yes, I need to weave in my ends. I have not yet done that. But the reason that these were left languishing for as long as they were was I didn't want to do afterthought heels in them. I actually knitted the majority of these socks while I was in Edinburgh for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and I knitted them because Emrys wasn't with me. I decided to just knit tubes and put the heels in later. A bit of a rookie error. I have never done a true afterthought heel before, and I ended up being incredibly nervous about the process of cutting into my socks, particularly because this yarn is incredibly special and I didn't want to kind of screw anything up. I really shouldn't have worried, you guys, because these afterthought heels are the best thing ever. I am so happy that I've now taught myself to do afterthought heels. I looked at a couple of how-tos online, a couple of tutorials just briefly, but I pretty much made it up as I went along, and it turned out perfectly because look at these. Look at these afterthought heels. I was really happy in terms of the measurement that I was able to get them lined up with the blue stripe. I think that they look amazing. I'm so happy with them. Look at them. They match really, really well. In terms of the striping, there is a slight difference. You can see in the heels, this one has a lot more of the cream at the end than this one, but that's not something that is going to bother Emrys, and I just love them. I'm so happy that they were finished, and I don't understand why it took me so long to kind of bite the bullet and actually get these heels in. They are so cute. And the socks are amazing. Most of the ends are woven in, it's just kind of the afterthought heels that I haven't quite done. And yeah, these are going to be going into Emrys's sock drawer, and they are going to be stored until it gets a little bit cooler, so they probably won't be worn for several months, but I know that they'll be appreciated when they are, and I'm really, really happy with them. This yarn was a pleasure to work with. It's the first ever Valkyrie Fibers yarn that I have used, but it's just glorious. I love it, and I definitely would want to buy more in the future. In case you're interested, I used a 64 stitch sock. That's what fits Emrys best. I also did a 3x1 rib, which is not my rib of preference. I'm usually a 1x1 twisted rib kind of girl, but I thought that these looked a little bit more, shall we say, sophisticated, strong and sophisticated for Emrys. I just thought he would like them more, basically, than my 1x1 twisted rib. And yeah, how exciting to have a finished object. The whole point of how I'm doing my knitting at the moment is focusing on one larger garment with lots of smaller things alongside, which I hope is going to help me with productivity and getting things off the needles, but also being more monogamous and being able to get larger objects finished faster. And so far, it appears to be working because I've got a finished object, you guys. I have a finished object, and I have a lot more work done on a couple more projects. So moving on from foes into whips. Whips. I have been watching a lot of House of Cards recently. I am completely new to House of Cards. I haven't watched it before. About a month ago. I've started again from the beginning, and whenever I say whip now, I just think of Kevin Spacey saying, "I'm the whip." Which I love. Totally besides the point. The next work in progress that I'm going to be sharing with you is living in my gorgeous, gorgeous project bag. Love this so much. Thank you so much, Hannah-Lisa, for this. And it's a little bit of work on my own self-striping sock, because of course, when you finish a pair of self-striping socks for your husband, you automatically want to work on your own self-striping socks. So this yarn is this incredible gobstopper from Nomadic yarns. I want all the Nomadic yarns, all the self-striping yarn basically. It's probably because I've been watching too much of Amy of Stranded Dye Works and all her self-striping colourways that she's been purchasing recently. Amy, you're leading me astray. But this is Nomadic yarns. This is the Molly Weasley colourway. I adore this yarn. I think it is glorious, and it is knitting up like a dream. This is how much I have done over this last week. This progress keeper actually was around about here, so I've pretty much, yeah, I've over doubled the length of the sock. I do want these to be nice long socks. With self-striping socks, I like them to be as long as they can be, and I tend to wear them with leggings and skirts so that I can show off the stripe or have them kind of peeking out of the top of my ankle boots in the autumn and winter. It's just sad that I won't be able to wear these for a while because it's so warm here, but I love them. I'm thinking I will probably do another repeat of the colour stripe before I put the toe in, because I think that will be a good length at that point to start putting in the toe, and then I'll cast on the second one. I have been using the tiny little 9-inch circular needle. This is a higher sharp 2.25mm needle, and it's growing on me. I'm not gonna lie, I do think that my sock needle of preference will always be a magic loop needle, preferably 2 at a time, because the thing that's irritating me about this is that once I finished it, I have to cast on the second one, and these don't even have heels in. So if I started doing afterthought heels, which I am really enjoying, it's even more of a palaver to basically put the heels in and then cast on a second sock. I do like having everything finished once I have, you know, done the cast off, which is why 2 at a time socks are just so appealing. But yeah, it's getting a lot more natural to use this little 9-inch circular. I'll try and show you. I'm probably horribly cross-eyed right now, but this is kind of how I'm going about it. I am a thrower, which isn't ideal for these tiny little needles, but I basically do an impression of a little squirrel or a chipmunk, and I hold the needles between kind of 2 or 3 fingers, well, 2 fingers and a thumb really, and just kind of work my way around, and that's been working pretty well, I'm not gonna lie. I do feel that if I were doing magic loop it would be considerably quicker, and I thought that the whole point of using these little 9-inch circulars was that they were supposed to zip by, and that definitely hasn't happened, but I'm not completely averse to them. I'm not sure how much I'll use them after I finished this pair of socks. I do think I will cast on the second one with the 9-inch circulars as well, because I do want the tension to be consistent. I don't really want to have one tight sock and one baggy sock or something like that, so I will most likely be doing that. But I just love this. I love it so much. I can't wait to have these finished. It's so addictive and the colours are so beautiful, and I love Nomadic yarns. I can see what the fuss is about now. It took me a long time to bite the bullet and actually invest in yarn from Nomadic yarns, just because it's always an expensive process buying something from the States for someone who lives in the UK. You do tend to get bitten in the butt by customs charges and all of that kind of stuff, but it was worth it for this, entirely worth it. Maybe I will ask for some more for my birthday this year. That's not till September, I'm planning ahead, but yes, loving that project. It's bringing me huge amounts of joy. The one other project which is on my needles this week as a work in progress is of course my ebony cardigan by Helga Isager, and I have done a fair amount of work on this week. For those of you who don't know, this is the yarn that I'm using. It's covered in fluff. Let me defluff it before I show it to you. This is the yarn that I am using. It's travel knitter yarn. I love it so much. It's a 50-50 silk and baby camel mix. This is the second skein that I have used, and I have put a considerable dent into this cardigan this week, and I'm gonna try and put this in a position where I can show you what I've done. I was still working on the main body of this cardigan when I shared it with you last week. It's already bigger than it was. It's so glorious. I love it so much. But I have actually started to divide it up now. It's no longer being worked in one piece, as you can see here. I have started and actually completed the right front of the cardigan. So we are on a roll. This dividing and kind of finishing up this section is something that I did in an evening in front of the TV, maybe about a couple of hours worth of knitting. And the only reason that it took that long was shall we say pattern complexities, which I will be getting onto in a little bit, but I have done the right front. And if you can see here, I know it's difficult to see. I'm going to try putting my hand behind it, but it's curling up. Can you see all of these gorgeous slip stitch details? This is the detailing that runs across the shoulders of the cardigan with little eyelets in the bottom. Oh my goodness, it is amazing. And it's particularly glorious with this silk blend of yarn because those little knit stitches, those slip stitches really show up nicely. It's difficult to show you because obviously it's curling like crazy, but they are there. I think you can kind of see them running along there with the little eyelets at the bottom. It's so delicate and so pleasing, and I love how it's looking. I cannot wait to get this finished and be able to wear it. It's probably going to be a while before I can wear it, but it's so light and drapey and beautiful. The entire body of this has been knit in reverse stocking net, so it's really nice to do something a little bit different for a little bit of detailing around the shoulder. So I am enjoying that. However, I am going to talk a little bit about the pattern in general. The collection of patterns is the book The Artisan, and I've shared it with you a couple of times since I purchased it from Loop. And although I'm still a huge fan of the collection of patterns and I think that they are beautiful and I still want to knit about 4 of the other patterns in there, the layout of the patterns is really getting on my nerves a little bit. It might just be a personal thing, but I'm really not responding very well to the way that the pattern's written. I have talked about, I think a couple of weeks ago, how it's a translation. And I think that that might be why I'm struggling a little bit. I almost feel that something has been lost in translation. But one of the things that the pattern specifies is reading through everything before you get started, which is what I do at every step. I read through everything. But the thing that I find frustrating is that with every step it says, do this, lots and lots and lots of information as to what you need to do. Then underneath that it says, while at the same time, doing this, and this, which is fine. I've used quite complicated patterns in the past, but for some reason, this is really throwing me. It took me a good couple of hours just to knit this little portion, this little skinny portion, because I couldn't work out how many stitches I should have been decreasing, where I should have been decreasing them, whether I was supposed to be on the right side or the wrong side. The pattern is vague. I'm going to put it out there. It's vague in terms of exactly where you should be and exactly what you should be doing. It's all there, but it's not written in a way that is 100% crystal clear. And that is starting to get to me a little bit. Maybe it was because I started doing something more complex with the pattern last night in front of the television rather than kind of when I had more time to think about it. But I do think of myself as being a relatively educated and informed knitter. So even if I was a little bit tired at the end of the day, I do feel that things should be put in a way that have some clarity. And as always, this is entirely my own opinion. I still think the patterns are worth knitting. I'm still loving this pattern and I do really want the finished article. But I'm a little bit concerned if it continues the way that it does with the pattern, that it's going to become more of a slog than a kind of pleasure to knit this. It's also something that I would think you should bear in mind if you are less experienced working with knitting patterns, that this is relatively challenging. I will obviously keep you updated as I progress with the pattern as to how I get on. But right now I do need to take just a little bit of a breather from it because I spoke about how it was relatively complicated in terms of the decreasing for the right front. It took me a while to work it out. When I got to the directions of the left front, it just says the same as the right front, but reverse the shaping. I don't have the mental capacity to deal with that right now. It took me long enough to work out what I was doing when it was all written down, let alone having to work everything out for myself. So I'm going to leave that until I have a little bit more mental space and focus to think about it. But for now, I'm very happy with how it's looking. I still think that design-wise, it's such an incredible design. Every piece in that collection is beautifully designed. I just wish that the pattern were as appealingly written as the finished garments look. I don't know whether it's allergies or just yarn fibres flying up into my face, but my whole face feels really itchy today, so apologies if I keep touching my nose or rubbing my eye. It just feels like things are on me, so yeah. Moving on from that slightly ridiculous description of me touching my face to so what? And I hate to disappoint you guys, but for this week's So What, it's really more of a update than an actual show and tell. So as you'll know, if you've been watching for a while, I am in the process of making a dress for my brother's wedding, and I've been going great guns on it. It is very, very close to completion at this point, but I have decided that I'm not actually going to be showing it on the podcast now until it's finished. There's a couple of reasons behind that. Neither my brother or his fiance actually watch the podcast, so it's not about that, but both my parents watch the podcast, and what I really, really want is for the dress to be a little bit of a surprise for the wedding. Also, I find that oversharing these kind of things adds to my general feeling of anxiety in terms of getting something completed. So rather than spending a lot of time focusing on the things that I haven't done, I am just going to say to you that I'm very, very happy with how it's looking. The fit looks great, and I am well on track to getting it finished within the time frame that I have set myself. Just a little update to know that everything's ticking over and it's going well, and obviously I will be sharing with you the completed dress next week after the wedding is all done, but for now I'm keeping it as kind of a little secret for myself, also a secret for my parents, because I just want it to be a surprise. That's how I'm feeling right now. But yes, a little bit sneaky, and I'm sorry that there's not more sewing content, but believe me, it will be worth it when you see it revealed in all its glory next week. Before we move on to this week's General Waffle, I would just like to take this opportunity to answer a couple of Dear Katie questions that have been sent to me recently. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dear Katie is a segment that I've just recently introduced. I no longer have an Ask Me Anything thread in my Ravelry group, so this is my way to have a conversation with you guys about anything that you would like to know. The only thing that I request is that you do not ask me specific teaching questions in terms of how to do things and techniques. That's not something that this segment will be for, but if you do want to send me a Dear Katie question for me either to answer via email or on the podcast, then please just send me an email at katie@insidenumber23.com with the subject title Dear Katie. I have two questions that I'm going to be answering this week, and the reason that I'm answering two of them is that they're relatively similar in terms of the subject matter. The first one is just signed VR, so I'm not entirely sure what your name is, VR, but thank you so much for sending me an email. And your question was, my question is about your video setup. What is your setup? What type of camera do you use? I'm looking to start my own vlog and I was wondering what equipment you use. Thank you in advance for your answer. Well, thank you for getting in touch. And this is something that I've talked about before, but for anyone who is new, I'm more than happy to share a little bit of information about my setup. My setup right now is incredibly basic. I am in the process of updating some things to make this podcast more sustainable and consistent. But in terms of camera, which is pretty much the only bit of equipment that I use, I was lucky enough last year to be given a beautiful new camera. It is the Canon G7X Mark II, so it's the second generation of the G7X, and I love this camera. Up until getting it, I recorded everything on my iPhone, and I have to say, quality-wise, there is a considerable difference between the quality, but if you're getting started and you don't want to have to invest a huge amount of money, using the camera on your phone is a really, really good way just to kind of bite the bullet and get on with it. Really, all you need is any form of videoing camera, and I would say I only really have experience of iPhones because that's the only phone that I've had for the last several years. But the quality of filming that you can get through an iPhone now in comparison to the way that it was a couple of years ago is just, there's a considerable difference. So I would say, just to get yourself started off, why not use an iPad, an iPhone, or even, I know some people use their camera through their computer. It's also slightly easier to edit video that you've recorded directly onto a computer, you know, so you might want to bear that in mind. But right now, all I use is my beautiful Canon G7X Mark II. I have it attached to a tripod to stop everything from moving around. But even that, for a long time, I used to balance my iPhone on top of a pile of books. So yeah, super, super professional. I hope that answers your question. Obviously, if my setup changes, I will share that in the future if anyone's interested, but for now, that's what I'm using. The second question in a similar vein was sent to me by Trisha, and Trisha did ask me multiple questions in her email. I'm going to be focusing on the first one that you asked for today, Trisha. I will get back to your other questions either via email or in a later episode of the podcast, but thank you so much for emailing me. You started your email by saying so many questions for you, and you did. She asked about 6 questions, which was brilliant. But like I said, the first question was, could you recommend an inexpensive / free, simple to use video editing app? My boys, who are 10 and 8, are into making videos about their adventures. Adorable, but need a lot of help with editing, which I think is amazing. Genuinely, I think that getting young people interested in technology and how to use computers from an early age is fantastic. It's such a good skill to have, particularly as the world is going more and more technological as the years go by, so fantastic. I personally and this will be not particularly surprising to anyone, as I've just said that I only have an iPhone. We are very much an Apple-based family here. Emrys loves Apple products, I love Apple products. It's all we have. We live on Mac computers and iPhones, and therefore the form of software that I personally use for editing is iMovie. It's incredibly easy to learn. It's one of those things that's very, very intuitive. If you just want to take a couple of hours and sit and play with it, you can teach yourself to pretty much do everything. The other fantastic thing about a very, very well-known form of software like iMovie is that if you have any questions, you just need to Google something and you can guarantee that there will be YouTube tutorials as to how to do exactly what you want to do. That's what I currently use. I am in the process of upgrading to Final Cut Pro, but that is obviously pro software and it is not for free, so that might be something that you might want to think about in the future. But in terms of my own personal experience, that is what I would recommend. Obviously, there are other forms of editing software out there. iMovie is the only one that I have ever used. So yeah, I hope that is helpful. And again, thank you both so much for emailing me and for sending me your questions. Okay, lovely ones, we have one more segment to get through this week, and it is, of course, General Waffle. General Waffle. And I thought we'd do something a little bit different this week for my General Waffle. As I hinted at earlier in the episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about what's going on inside number 23, my lovely, lovely house where I live with Emrys and Rowley in Hertfordshire, just north of London. You know the spiel. But I have had a couple of requests via comments and things like that you guys might be a little bit interested to see what's going on in terms of the decorating that I have been talking about. Obviously, you don't get to see a huge amount of number 23. You get to see this little bit that I share with you and some additional bits that I've shared on vlogs and Instagram in the past. But I wanted to just talk about a couple of things that I've been working on in terms of decorating projects. I wanted to start off with a little bit of history around this house. This is the first house that Emrys and I have owned, and we actually bought it at the same time that we were planning our wedding. Yeah, we decided to do everything all at once. But something you should know about number 23, we love it very, very much, but it was pretty derelict when we first purchased it. That was one of the reasons that we were able to buy this house. The reason that we were able to buy a house, not a flat, and a house with a considerable amount of space was the condition that it was in when we bought it. We basically bought the worst house on the best street, to kind of quote location, location, location. It was falling apart when we first moved in. We've been here for 2 years-ish actually living, but it took a long time to make the house livable. We did a lot of work in terms of the kitchen. We completely redid the flooring. We did a lot of basic decorating to be able to get this house somewhere that we'd be able to actually live as opposed to nothing working. And it took a long time, but it was worth it. But we basically got to a point where we had done enough to get by, and we kind of stopped, and that's the position that we are in now. I have recently reawakened this love within myself of wanting to get the house finished, and we're starting to take definite strides towards doing that now. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with the house. So parts of the house are perfect and I love them, and parts of the house are still almost entirely untouched since we moved in 2 years ago. And for me, as someone who, you know, very openly tends to suffer from depression and that type of thing, my environment very much affects me and my mood. So as a kind of personal project to help realign myself, getting the house into a really, really good place, as much as I can physically do before we get, you know, people in to help and that type of thing, is very, very therapeutic. But what I wanted to do was just share with you two different parts of number 23 that have been taking up a lot of my time, whether it's actually physically decorating or planning what we're going to do next. And that's what I'm going to share with you now. So by the magic of editing, I'm going to hand you over to me and I'm going to show you a little bit of number 23. Enjoy. So guys, welcome to a little bit more of number 23. Usually you just see a couple of little snapshots. I've filmed before in my bedroom. I've also filmed in the living room. I have filmed in the study, which is the room that I'm going to be showing you next. I usually film in my sewing room, which is just this room here. You probably recognize that wallpaper if you're a regular viewer. But the couple of areas that I want to kind of show you today are the places that I'm working the most on at the moment. And yeah, I thought we would get started with the study, which is just behind me, just here. I did want to, just before we head to the study, which is just opposite us in this direction, I wanted to quickly show you the floor. The floor is one of my favourite things about number 23 that we got done. I am a huge fan of wooden floors. We have no carpet in this house whatsoever. All of our floors are either the wooden floorboards or tiled flooring. This was one of the first things that we had completed before we moved in. But as you can see here, this is pretty much the only room in the house that is still untouched from when we moved in. But as you can see, those are what our floorboards look like when we moved in. We had them all sanded and oiled and finished beautifully to this dark wood colour, which I love. But this kind of, I think, gives you an idea of the condition of the house when we first moved in. Before we renovated, after we renovated. But just walking down our landing here, look at the beautiful floors and everything. This is the room that I'm going to be showing you today. So one thing that I would say about this space is that it is usable as is. We completely redecorated this room when we moved in, but it was kind of an afterthought. This colour, which isn't showing up very true, is kind of like a blue-grey. I compare it to like a wood pigeon colour. We haven't yet got any window finishings in here, so we don't have any curtains or anything, but that is basically all that we did. We finished the walls, we stripped back all of the nasty paint that was in here, and we painted it. That's a little bit more true to life, that kind of colour. This room, when we first moved into the house, was going to be Emrys's study / our spare bedroom. So this lovely bit of sofa that I am sitting on just now is actually a sofa bed. It converts into a kind of small double bed, and so when people come over and stay, they can sleep on here. Long story short, Emrys never used this room as a study. Emrys isn't the type of person who sits down in one place to do all of his emails and that type of thing. So it just was not a functional space, which was a little bit sad because it is a really nice room. It's always very bright and sunny in here, and it felt like a waste. So he very kindly has allowed me to start moving quite a lot of my podcasting bits and pieces in here. This is pretty much my office space when it comes to the podcast, so it will essentially be the home of my editing station, a lot of my filming equipment as I start to get more equipment, and also just to give me a little bit more space for stash and books and all of that type of thing. But as it is, it's not making me very happy. It's very bland. It's not very me at all. Not sure why I showed you the ceiling just then. But yeah, as is, it's a perfectly serviceable room. I'm going to take my glasses off. This is why I never podcast in glasses, because the glare is incredibly distracting. But it's a perfectly usable room. It's nice, but it's just not finished, and it doesn't have that extra special something, which is what I want to give to it. So my plans for this room are actually quite simple. So this is the view from the doorway. As you can see, we have at the moment a desk in here. This is just from IKEA. A lot of my pop figures are on there, but as you can see, they're all kind of all over the place because they tend to fall off that rickety shelf. I want to get rid of the shelving and keep the desk, but my idea for this room is to paint it entirely white. I want it to feel quite utilitarian, so I want to paint the walls white rather than this slightly strange blue-grey. The wall opposite here, which is basically the wall that you see the most of when anybody comes up the stairs of our house, which are just behind me at the moment. The first thing that you see when you walk up this, the landing, which I walked up earlier, is this wall. I want to create a picture wall here. I have got some pictures, but I'm searching for kind of prints and fun text things to go up on here. But that's the idea, is to keep this all very, like I said, utilitarian, quite a professional, clean space, and then just have a few little pops of colour. One of the main projects that's been taking up the majority of my time over the last couple of weeks is actually our hall landing and stairs, which I am sitting in just now, so that's probably why everything's a little bit echoey. This staircase, I'm going to insert some pictures if I can to kind of show you the journey that it has been on. When we first moved in, it was fully carpeted like a lot of the rest of the house, but I ripped that up relatively quickly, and we do have a really, really nice wooden staircase underneath. It was pretty derelict, like the majority of the house. It had some signs that it had been painted various colours over the years. I think that there were signs that it had obviously had kind of a stair runner on it at some point, and I decided as a kind of project I would like to repaint the stairs. Now that's taken a couple of different journeys so far. Originally I was going for a two-tone colouring. So originally I was having the vertical pieces of the stairs in that gloss white, and the horizontal slats of the staircase being a pale grey. But living with that for a long time, I started to realise that that just wasn't something that was working for me. It took me a really, really long time to admit that to myself, because I'm the one that's been working on these stairs and it's taken a really long time. I've had to sand them, prime them, paint them. It's been a long journey, but recently I realised that the colour wasn't working for me. I didn't want to work on them because of that, and so I have started painting them a much darker shade of grey. It's actually a slate grey, and I'm doing them all one colour, so a lot more simple, less fuss, and I love them so far. I am really, really happy with them. So this is my staircase so far. There's my little toes peeping out. So let me just kind of come down here a little bit awkward. The lighting in this part of the house isn't great, obviously, because it's a stairwell, but there we have them. This is just one coat of this grey paint, and I really, really, really like it. It's going to need at least another coat, if not another 2 coats. Oh, water bottles, hi. The other thing that I've been doing is doing a lot of filling around the edges and between slats, because there were a lot of gaps in these stairs, but I just think that they look so good. This actually gives you a view of what the stairs looked like before I painted them this slate grey. This colour here was the grey that I was using before. The reason that there's lots of marks on here is that I did a lot of extra filling between the slats. So you can see here I have had to put a lot of work into these. So that's kind of like a before after shot for you. And yes, they are already covered in hair because Rolly does shed like nobody's business. But yeah, this is what they were before, this is what they are now, and this is what has basically been eating up the majority of my time. I also love how this dark colour goes with the tiling that we put in when we first moved in. I love these tiles, they are so cute. Talking of cute, hello baby! But I think that, yeah, this darker colour goes a lot kind of better with this grey tiling than before, because that pale colour was, again, pulling out the blues in the tiling. Wasn't it, pup? Pulling out the blue rather than the grey. And I much prefer a more grey palette. So yeah, guys, that is a little peek inside number 23 for you. There's a lot of other things that I'm going to be working on. If you're interested, I can start sharing more, maybe making a little bit of additional video specifically, hello bubs, about what we're going to be doing and how we're doing it. But for now, those are my two main projects, the hall landing and stairs and the study. Like I said, there's a lot more that I want to do. I'm very much in the decorating frame of mind at the moment, and it's bringing me a lot of happiness. I am a homebody, so creating a beautiful home that I'm proud of and that I love to live in is very, very important. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that little glimpse into what has been keeping me busy and kind of keeping me away from the knitting and the sewing over the past couple of weeks. But you have to do what makes your heart happy, don't you? And sometimes it's not going to be crafty things, is it, babes? Huh? Sometimes it's going to be decorating, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed that little sneaky peek into what's going on at number 23. If that is something that you would like to see more of, then please let me know in the comments. I'd really love to know your thoughts. Obviously, this is a crafty channel, but I consider what I do with my home in terms of DIY and decorating another kind of craft. So let me know what you think. And I can't wait to share with you how we get on with some of those bits and pieces. I think it's going to be really, really exciting, and this house is just going to be glorious. I cannot wait. I'm so excited, in case you hadn't realised. But that's about everything from me this week. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me rabbit on about various things. If you have done, please do give the video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date as to when there are new videos on the channel. I promise you there's a lot of fun stuff coming up within the next couple of months. I have big plans. I know I keep saying that, but I really do. And things are going on in the background behind the scenes in terms of the future of this little channel. So yay, I'm so excited about that. But for now, from me to you, I'm sending you huge amounts of love. I hope you have a wonderful week filled with all of the crafty good things, whether it's knitting, sewing, decorating, whatever. If you enjoy the heat, please enjoy it. If you don't, like me, stick inside and have an ice lolly, because that's just, you know, the best thing to do in these kind of circumstances. But I will see you all very, very soon. Bye! It doesn't recognise me with this hair, the camera. It's like, who are you? Are you a person? We're not going to focus on you. Oh, I have a really itchy face. It's the heat. The heat is making everything sticky. Oh. Full face of makeup in heat. Not the best idea I ever had.